Perfect. Yeah. Gauri, go ahead.
Welcome everyone to the Teen Debaters fourth session in the Debate 101 series. I'm Gauri and we're so excited to have you all here today. Please don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat during the session and we'll definitely get back to you. The Teen Debater is an organization dedicated to revolutionizing debate education, access, and activity for schools and students across India. We want debate to be a powerful tool for social mobility and change and make it accessible for free. We aim to enhance your critical thinking, expand your worldview, but also go beyond debate and build a community. Your speaker for this session, Rebuttals, will be Shivansh Gupta, the Teen Debaters founder. Hi, Shivansh, how are you?
Hi, Gauri. I'm good. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And we are going to get started with our session now. So this is the fourth session that we have in our Debate 101 series, which is on rebuttals, where we'll be teaching you how to respond to other members, other delegates, and other debaters in any form of debate, MUN-related activity that you might be doing. This is, again, going to be starting from the scratch. So if you have had no prior information, that is totally okay, because we'll be teaching you everything from the beginning about how you can respond to other people in an MUN. And people are continuing joining in, so we will still wait for them. And I think we've given Avira and Gauri, you guys are co-hosts, so please keep admitting people while we go on with the session, because people will be joining in there as well. Cool. So we can get started, and we'll get started with, since we don't have that many people, we'll get quickly started with our introduction so that we can generally tell you if you're new, who we are, and what do we do. So we are part of this organization called the Teen Debater, where we want to make debates, and especially debates and MUN kind of activities and similar activities in the forefront, more accessible to a lot of people. These are our 5 main goals that we have set, which is accessibility, empowerment, education, independence, and excellence. Each of these goals are things that we want to continue and we want to follow. Accessibility is literally what it means, where we want to make debate accessible to tier 2, tier 3 cities and people in those cities, so that people can still learn how to debate and learn skills like debates and MUNs over there, especially because teaching these kinds of skills is the only way they're able to gain social mobility. And it's the only way they actually get a lot of information about the world and make better choices in the future, which is why we want to especially make debates and MUNs accessible to the most vulnerable communities in India who don't have access to debates and MUNs. The second one is empowerment, where we want people to feel empowered through debate and do debates and MUN practice on their own. This is what empowerment means. It is the idea that you will be able to practice and work on your own debate skills and MUNs if you're part of the Teen Debater, irrespective of having begun to become dependent on anyone else. And you can still do debate practice on your own. So we provide free resources. We give these free sessions every weekend, and we give a lot of free material, a lot of free debate opportunities for you to be able to practice debate independently, so you don't have to be dependent on any external organization. You don't have to pay someone to learn debate, because ultimately debates and MUNs are activities that just use your brain and thinking. You shouldn't be charging someone for thinking in the first place. And obviously we want you to have free access to debates and MUNs so that you can build up these skills on your own. The third one is education. Again, it's about giving free resources to everyone. If you go to our Discord channel, we're already putting up our resources from tomorrow over there. So if, in case you've not joined our Discord channel, we'll be putting up that link right now in chat. Please go ahead and go onto our Discord channel and Discord page and log in. It is basically WhatsApp, but for children, and you can talk to literally anyone over there on Discord. You can talk to any one of your friends, of course, over there. But more importantly, you can meet a lot of more new debaters. You can feel free to like talk to different kind of partners that you might want to have, or you can go to MUNs together from there. It's a very, very easy way to connect to a lot of different people. So feel free to go ahead and mark yourself to join on Discord. I think Tavish will be putting it up in chat later on. So Tavish, you can put up the Discord link in chat and everyone can join our Discord from there as well. The fourth goal is independence, where we want people to become independent in terms of debate. But more importantly, this is about making the organization self-independent, which is that it is not dependent on one person. So if you join our session tomorrow, we'll also be hosting another session tomorrow on Sunday. We do these sessions on every weekend, which is a session on MUNing, and we'll specifically be focusing on MUNing and MUN basics. you'll see that that session is being led by someone else. So we have a core team of over 40 people working with us as part of the Teen Debater, just children, just teenagers. And this entire organization is just dependent on teenagers. The fact that this organization is independent means that if one person drops out, it doesn't stop the working of the entire organization as a whole. And that's the whole point of making it self-independent. And the last one is obviously excellence. We want people to excel while doing debates and MUNs. We want them to learn a lot of new things and obviously win at different kinds of competitions, at university level competitions, at school level competitions, so that they're well prepared enough to go ahead and beat the people over there as well. And obviously, we want you to become better and excel through debates and MUNs in your own academic activities and in the college that you'll be going to in the future. All of this is ultimately very, very useful for your college admissions process. The more you do debates and MUNs, the higher the chances you have of getting into the top 10 colleges in the US and UK. In fact, in case you don't know, debates and MUNs especially improve your chances of getting into a US college in the Ivy League branch by 20 times more. And so if you just have done debates and MUNs consistently, and even if you've not won, but if in fact you've just been doing them for like 2-3 years, the chances of you getting into an Ivy League is far more, 20 times more than an average person who hasn't done debates and MUNs. But feel free to register for a session tomorrow. The link for that session has been put in chat. Tavish has just posted in. That's the link where you can register for the session tomorrow. It'll also be at 6 p.m. where you will see someone else talking about MUNs and specifically about MUN basics. You're going to teach MUNs from the scratch over there, give you a lot of additional information that you will not find online, and a lot of more tips and tricks by experienced MUNers that'll talk to you about MUNs that you generally won't find online and cannot research about. So that'll be a very exclusive session and be very useful to you if you join in tomorrow to learn about MUNs from that session. So let's move on to actually learning about rebutting and how to give good responses to people while doing MUNs and debates. So the first thing we want to just generally cover is what are rebuttals. And instead of taking a response, I kind of want to just give it out to everyone because this is a lot more important. And so let's just directly look at what is a rebuttal. In case obviously you've joined the session because you want to learn how to respond to everyone, the very simple definition of a rebuttal is just a response. But the more important definition that we think is very useful has been given on the slide. So you can obviously take a screenshot of this. You can use this for later on. And if possible, please have a notebook and write down these kind of things that you're learning over here, because debates and MUNs are offline activities that are increasingly becoming offline. And so you won't be able to take down notes on your laptop later on. So it's much better if you build the skill of writing for debates and MUNs. But a rebuttal is inherently just a response to anyone else or any other speaker in a debate or an MUN. But the more important definition is what we've given to you on the slide. So here it has highlighted some words that we want you to take care of when you understand what a rebuttal is. The first word has been highlighted here. So the entire definition, I'll just read it out to you in case you've not written it down. Just write it down. As a rebuttal is a well-explained negation or response to the other side's argument in a way that aids your own side's case. So there are a couple of words that we've highlighted over here that we want you to specifically focus on. The first one is a well-explained negation. That means that or like a well-explained negation or response. So the first word here that we want you to take care of is well-explained. Well-explained in general means that your response has to be analyzed and it has to have multiple layers to it. So you cannot just respond to someone by saying, no, that's not true. You cannot respond to someone just by saying, that's not true because ABC. You can't give one reason. We tell people in debates and MUNs to give multiple reasons. That's how your response is well explained. It is analyzed in a much more deeper way. If you only give one reason why what someone is saying might be wrong, might be not true, or might be unfair, that is a very weak reason. The reason why that's true is because if you only give one explanation for a rebuttal or one explanation for a response, anyone in the MUN or anyone in the debate can also give a response back to you and take down your response easily. Which is why if you give multiple reasons, if you say like, okay, whatever you said is fine, it's fair, but here's why it is not true, here's what is wrong for 3 reasons. So the 3 reasons is what makes your rebuttal well explained, and explaining all of those is also specifically important. Don't just give one line of explanation. You have to logically explain why whatever they're saying is not true and build up a logic chain, explain everything in a certain way that everything is connected to each other. And more importantly, whenever you explain something, keep asking yourself the question why again and again. So for example, if I want to prove to someone that poverty is not the biggest issue in the world, I'll probably say poverty is not the biggest issue in the world because we think like right now there might be more economic issues that might be coming in. Why is the economic issue more important than poverty? Because large scale economy affects a lot more people than simple poverty. Why is that more important than simple poverty? Probably because if you make better large scale economic policies, poverty can inherently be solved directly. And so that is a well explained explain response or negation to the fact that poverty may not be the world's biggest problem. In that case, what I did is I created a logical chain, a logical sequence of steps where I proved my first thing, which was just saying poverty is not the biggest problem. And I went on steps from there to proving why economics or like economic policies or any other economic problem might be bigger than poverty. And so well-explained response also has to be multiple layered, but it also has to have a logical chain that you go to it in a different logical way and you give a full logical explanation as to why the person, whatever they're saying, the claim that they're making is not true or is unfair that they're saying. The second thing is a negation or response. That's pretty clear that rebuttals are usually proving whatever they're saying is not true or a direct response to whatever they're saying in their argument. It doesn't always have to be proving what they're saying is not true. And we'll tell you what are the other types of rebuttals later on, but it doesn't always have to be something that you're going to show that whatever they're saying is not true. There are other ways to respond as well. And that's why you said negation or response over here and not just negation. The last thing here is that it aids your own side's case. And that's the most important thing that I personally think that a rebuttal should have. Don't make a rebuttal if it just takes down their own side, like their side's case, or just like takes down some minute part of their side's case that is not beneficial to your own. Like if it is a random rebuttal that is not really important in the debate, or if it is hurting some example of theirs or proving why some example they gave might be wrong or bad, that's not helping your own side's case because that does not logically build up your own side's case. Taking down an example is a bad way to rebut because rebuttals should be on logic. They should not be on examples. The debate isn't about examples. The debate is about logic. And so even in an MUN, you should not be giving rebuttals on specific policies a country might have implemented, but you should be giving responses to why that country's policies and the decision-making process that made those kind of policies is just bad, or why those type of policies are bad, not just one policy. So don't make a rebuttal against like any other country like the United States, for example, on why maybe the protectionist policies are bad, or why one policy that Trump implemented for protectionism is bad in the United States. That's a bad rebuttal, but you probably have to prove why the US economy becoming like protectionist, becoming an economy that only focuses on its domestic sector is bad for the rest of the world in general, and not just about what Trump did or what Biden did or what any specific US president did. That's a bad response. You should not be focusing on any specific example, but you should be focusing on the logic that builds up that example. And so aiding your own side's case is important because the rebuttal is meant to better what your side of the debate is doing. So response should not be in vacuum. It should not be, okay, I proved whatever they said is bad. I prove whatever they said is wrong, so I'm done. No, you have to prove at the end of the day, okay, if I prove what their side is bad, if I prove that what they're saying is wrong, how does that show why my side is still better? Because ultimately, even if you show that someone else's side is worse or horrible, it doesn't mean your side is doing any better of a job. And if you don't have a side, if you're not able to prove why your side is better, then the only thing we're left with is to believe in their side, which is why we tell you at the end of your rebuttal, keep explaining why your side is still better, why your side wins this debate if you prove someone else's side is worse or bad. Every time you give a rebuttal, you have to show why this benefits your own side. Otherwise, it's not a debate, it's not an MUN. If you don't have a case yourself, obviously you're going to represent someone, some side, some country, some person in an MUN or a debate, and you have to, at the end of the day, still prove to the other side that your own country, your own portfolio, or your own side is better than what they're saying in the other side. And that's why you have to mention why it aids your own side's case. The second thing that we want to cover then is the types of rebuttal one person might get while doing a debate. And there are different types of rebuttals, obviously, that are available. There are a lot of different types of rebuttals that you can find online as well when you do research on how you respond to other people. But to make it simple, we have simplified it down to 3 specific type of rebuttals that I think most debaters and MUNs currently tend to use. And that's the easiest form of rebuttal and response you should be aware of that you can use in your later future debates and MUNs. And so here are the 3 different types of rebuttals. Feel free to obviously screenshot this and note it down later on as well. We would prefer if you note it down. It's much easier again for you to remember, but obviously we'll explain what these 3 types of rebuttals are. For the people who've just joined in, because a lot of new people also join in, feel free to register for our session tomorrow. We're also going to have a session tomorrow just specifically based on MUNs. Tavish, you can put the link again in chat for everyone, but we are going to have a session tomorrow on just MUNs and teaching you about MUN basics and MUNs from the scratch. So please join for the session tomorrow as well. It's going to be at the same time, 6 p.m. It's a very, very, very useful session. A lot of experienced MUNers are coming there for the session who've done good in MUNs themselves. They have a lot of knowledge about MUNs, and they'll be talking to you about how you can do well in your own MUNs later on. So let's look at the specific types of rebuttals that we have. There are three general types of rebuttals that we want you to note, that you can always use in any one of your speeches or responses. And note that these are good ways to respond to a delegate in an MUN, and also in a general debate directly on how to rebut someone else's argument. So the first type of response is known as not true rebuttals. This is literally what we were just looking at right now, which is this idea of a negation. So if anyway, always in a debate, all debates are based on just a response and a to and fro basis of just claims. One side claims something, the other side also claims something, and then one side claims what the other side is claiming is wrong. Similarly for the other side, and this just goes on. So I say X is true, someone else says Y is true, then I say that Y is not true, and I still think X is true, and then this goes on. And that's how a debate or even an MUN progresses, right? And in MUN, you'd see like US coming up and saying, this is the best way to solve this problem of Russia, Ukraine. And then Russia will come up, no, it's not the best way to solve. We don't want diplomacy. Maybe we want something else. Maybe we want more trade. Maybe we want to continue the annexation, right? And then India will come up and say, no, Russia and US are both wrong, and this is the thing. So like these are the ways you would probably want to rebut. In that case, what you're doing here is you're proving what someone is saying is just not true. You're negating what they're saying directly, and that's one way of rebuttal, one way of responding to someone by saying whatever they're saying is not true. But obviously, just don't say it's not true. That's called an assertion. You can't just say that, okay, Aditya came ahead in the debate and said this, or whatever Aditya said is not true. That's bad. You have to show that whatever Aditya said is not true, and why is that not true as well. If you don't give a reason why it's not true, then it's ultimately useless. It's as bad as me going ahead and saying, tomorrow, if you supported that penalty, everybody's going to be happy. Obviously, everyone can be happy if you supported that penalty. There are probably reasons why the world would become a better place if you have the death penalty, or a bad place if you have the death penalty. But you can't just go ahead and say it will become a good place, it will become a bad place, without explaining why it's going to become a bad place or why it's going to be a good place, right? And even though this might seem very intuitive and logical, that obviously you have to explain whatever you're saying, and you have to give reasons and why that might be true and why that might not be true. But in debates, that is where people lose out the most. They just don't explain the rebuttal well. They don't explain the response well in the MUN, and that's why you might not get enough points while you're giving a speech in an MUN or in a debate or in any form of like debate MUN related activity, because you didn't explain it enough. So that's why you tell people to keep on asking the question why again and again, so that you explain everything you're saying and you're able to give a good response. The second type of rebuttal then is even if rebuttals. Even if rebuttals is assuming whatever they're saying is not true, might be true. So whatever you're trying to prove initially not true, let's assume that it's true. For example, if someone makes some claim X, you assume whatever they're making as the claim X is true. You assume that it is in fact existent, and whatever they're saying is right for the purposes of the debate. And now this is not going to make your side worse, and I'll tell you how. But in this type of rebuttal, you have to assume what they're saying is not, what they're saying is true, and you can't follow the first line of rebuttal then if you go for this one. And that's why it's called an even if. So let's just look at an example for this as well. So if someone comes here and gives us the claim X, like they say for any topic, let's say the topic is again about supporting death penalty, right? They come here and say, okay, we want to support the death penalty because the death penalty reduces crime rates. It reduces crime rates because it is a very, very scary thing. People are very scared to do crimes like, I don't know, murder, rape, etc. now, because they think that they're going to be given the death penalty for it. And that's why they might not now do these kind of crimes, right? So that's the claim. The claim on the debate of should the death penalty be abolished? And for the side that says the death penalty should be existent, they say that the death penalty is a good thing because it scares people from not doing crimes anymore, from doing crimes, and it scares people to stop doing crimes in the first place. So that's their claim. Now, obviously, one line of response would be, okay, that's not true. People will still people will not stop doing crimes. They will still continue to do crimes because one reason might be that the death penalty is just too far for people to even think about and to like conceptualize in their mind, right? Like just because you know that you can be given death from doing murder, you might not stop doing murder, because murder and such kind of activities, such kind of crimes at such a high order, at such a high level, that people just generally don't think about the good and bad, the rationality of committing these kind of acts, and they just do it directly. So that might just not be true, that the death penalty is going to reduce the chances of someone going ahead and doing things like murder. People will still continue to do it because it's just at such a high level that people don't care about the end result of it. The second thing might be, even if, let's say, and now the rebuttal to this is that I'm not going to prove what they're saying is not true, right? I'm not going to go ahead and say, okay, they said that the death penalty is going to make people do less crimes. Let's say that we agree that it's going to make people do less crimes, right? And that's where the even if rebuttal comes in, where I say, even if people stop doing crimes, the kind of crimes they will stop doing is still not enough to make a difference. What does this mean? This means, for example, in the death penalty, in the cases of the death penalty, even if the death penalty stops people from doing crimes, what are the kinds of crime people are going to stop doing, right? It's probably going to be crimes like murder and rape only. And so these crimes, any which ways, are very less. Most people don't go ahead and and shoot a person on the road. Most people don't go ahead and like kill a person with a knife. Most people don't do murder. Most people don't do like third degree murder. Most people don't do mass murder just so often. And so because people don't do it that often, it's not going to make a marginal difference if you implement the death penalty, because crimes like robbery, crimes like assault, crimes like defamation, these kind of crimes will still exist. They won't stop. So even if what they're saying about the death penalty stopping crimes is true, it's not true to the way they're showing how it's going to be true. So it's probably not going to be true at all, because crimes actually won't reduce. But even if what they're saying is that crimes might reduce, the kind of crimes that might reduce are still like murder and rape, which are any which ways very, very less. So even if what they're saying about crimes reducing is true, it's still bad, because robberies, assault, and such crimes still happen. Defamation still happens. So these kind of crimes don't stop. And so whenever you do even if rebuttals, the whole idea is, let's say they make some claim X. So you say, even if X is true, the end result of X is bad. And so usually claims are structured in this way, right? You say, someone comes here and makes the claim X is there and X leads to Y benefit. So my claim was, if we do like whatever the debate, let's say the debate is on some ABC thing, which in this case was the death penalty, but let's assume that there's some topic for the debate. And so what you would say is, in the debate, because of ABC policy, etc., X will happen and X will lead to Y. So X is your claim, Y is your end impact, end goal of the claim. The first rebuttal of not true was just proving X is not true. So you don't even get Y. Just say that whatever claim they're making about X is just not true. This is not going to happen. So they don't get Y. The second kind of rebuttal is, okay, let's assume X happens. Even if X happens, Y does not happen. So this is kind of proving like Y is not true. Just say that some other bad thing is going to happen. And that is what it means to do these kind of rebuttals, where you say like it's not true. You ideally just go ahead and try to prove you assume that the claim is true, but the actual end goal or the end response is not true of the claim. And that's what even if rebuttals are. And the third kind of rebuttals, and even though this might be a little complicated at the start, that it is okay, because you won't really get the actual understanding of rebuttals until you do a debate yourself, which is why we're going to do daily debates on our Discord server. And you guys can feel free to again join our Discord server. The link has been posted up in chat. Please do join in. We do regular daily debates over there, and we're going to put up a lot more resources for you to practice this. So even if at the start this looks a little bit more theory based and a little bit harder to understand right now, that's okay, because this will come much better in use case when you actually do the debate. But trust me, even if rebuttals are the most genuinely intuitive rebuttals, these are the first things you will think of when you actually do a rebuttal to some debater or to some MUNer. Whenever someone makes some claim X and they give some Y benefit of that claim, the first line of response is always just proving whatever they're saying in X is not true, so they just don't get Y. So you break this link, right, by just proving this is not true. But the other way of taking down claim X is by proving that maybe X might be true, but even if X is true, it leads to some Z bad impact and not Y. So they still don't get their benefit. And the last kind of rebuttal, which is in the worst case, let's say you don't have any kind of response to what they're saying. Let's say they say X is going to lead to Y, and you're like, for sure, this is going to lead to Y. I don't know how to rebut this. I don't know how to respond to this. The US delegate came here and said that the policy that they're going to implement for solving the financial crisis that might be going on in the US right now is going to solve the financial crisis. And that policy is amazing. So I don't know how to respond to that as Russia to the United States. Then you're like, that's when you're going to use this last form of rebuttal, which is the worst case that you should be not using at the start. But if you don't have anything, which is known as weighing rebuttals. This is in the case that, okay, US said that they're going to do X policy, and X policy is going to solve the financial crisis that they're having right now, and it's going to solve the financial crisis in Y ways. It's going to lead to Y benefits that might solve the financial crisis. But that probably would be some like Z harms also. Whenever you implement some policy, there are always good stuff about the policy, but there are always some bad things about the policy as well. And so whenever someone makes some claim that, okay, I'm going to do this, and it's going to lead to some good benefits, they only show you the good benefits because obviously they don't want to give you the bad benefits of it. Otherwise, you'll use that bad benefits against them. And that's where you use these kind of rebuttals, where if you're unsure on how to prove the good benefits that they're getting is not true, just try to find the bad things of what they're saying and find the bad impacts of what they're saying and weigh it. Weighing means that you just show the bad benefits and you show that this is far more impactful than the good things you're saying. You're going to like weigh it on a balance, on a scale in real life, and just say the benefits of this are far worse. The harms of this are far worse than the benefits. The good things are far lesser than the bad things that actually happen. And how can you weigh? You can probably weigh, and we'll cover this in a later session as well, but you can probably weigh by saying, okay, maybe the bad thing impacts like 1,000 people, the good thing only impacts 100 people. So obviously the bad thing is far worse, and that's why you shouldn't do it. Second way is the bad thing impacts poor people, good thing impacts rich people. Obviously, rich people's lives are anyways better at any point in time. And so if the bad thing is affecting poor people, which are far more important to be saved than rich people who are already getting a better quality of life, why should we benefit rich people more when we should be benefiting poor people who have absolutely no good quality of life? And so the bad thing still outweighs the good thing. Even if there might be like 1,000 rich people who are better off, but 100 poor people who are worse, it's important to protect the 100 poor people than to give a better life to 1,000 rich people, because 1,000 rich people will still anyways lead a good life versus the 100 poor people who are not getting a good life at all. And so that's called a weighing rebuttal. You're not trying to prove that they might not get benefits to 1,000 rich people. You're not trying to prove that even if they get benefits to 1,000 rich people, it's still bad. But you just say, okay, they get benefits to 1,000 rich people, but here are the bad things that might happen by getting benefits to 1,000 rich people. Or, for example, hurting 100 poor people, and you just compare it and weigh it. And so this is the most lazy form of rebuttal a person might have, where you don't have any other sort of logical response. So you're just going to compare and weigh, and it's just being comparative. It's just comparing two sides and showing why one side is better. That's called a weighing rebuttal. And that's how you can use this. Now let's go a little more onto the MUN specific side and just look at how this might affect in MUNs and how this might be useful in an MUN. So how do you definitely attack a delegate if you get this kind of a situation in an MUN, and how should you be responsive to a delegate yourself as well? So let's first look at how to attack a delegate, wherein a delegate has just come and given a speech in an MUN. Let's say there was a general speakers list going on, or like a moderated caucus is going on, basically a format of a speech. If you don't know what this is, if you join tomorrow's session, all of the MUN basics will be clarified. So please join the session tomorrow. We'll cover everything about MUNs from the scratch tomorrow onwards, and it'll teach you everything about MUNs. But basically in an MUN, let's say some country comes in an MUN and gives a speech. Now you want to give a good speech, and one of the elements of giving a good speech is giving a good response. So how do you attack the person? Let's say US just spoke before you. So how do you, as Russia, attack the US? And we'll just look at that right now. But this is the use case on how to attack a delegate. So there are a couple of things you can do, right? So we have put this into steps to make it far easier for you. So you can just follow these 5 simple steps, and you'll be able to put a very good response to other delegates in an MUN. The first thing is, every time you're responding to a delegate, please name the delegate themselves. This is very, very important because it shows that you're directly impacting someone, you're directly attacking someone, but it also makes it much easier for someone like the chair, your judge, to understand who you're attacking, and also gets a lot of support, a lot of controversy started in the MUN that, oh, this delegate is just targeting one person, and that's why this delegate might actually be a good person. He might be experienced, he or she might know a lot of stuff because they're specifically targeting people. So it creates a lot of support, but it also creates a lot of, like, in the sense, drama in the MUN, which is kind of what you want to do in order to gain support. You want to start some debate inherently in the MUN. And so it kind of creates that, wherein if you directly impact or directly attack someone else, it probably becomes a big thing. It probably becomes something that people will generally look into and care about. And that's why you should be directly impacting and directly targeting the person you want to attack in an MUN in the first place. So directly name the person you're trying to attack, directly talk about the person or the delegate you're trying to attack. And so just name them while you're giving your speech. That would be very, very useful in creating a good MUN speech. The second thing is name the thing that they directly say. This is about if the US comes in and you're the delegate of Russia, and if US comes in before you and gives a speech, please quote exactly word to word what they say when you're responding, because one, people pay more attention as to when you're not paraphrasing, but when you're giving word to word stuff that people said before. It directly makes them understand that you're talking about what they're saying instead of just paraphrasing everything and changing the point. But secondly, the more you try to name exactly word to word what they say instead of just paraphrasing the point, obviously you should be able to summarize it. So don't go ahead and give another 1 minute speech of what the US said and then give 1 minute of responses. You won't have enough time anyways. So don't take too long and summarize what they're saying. But we directly recommend you to take at least some quotations from what they said so that you also know directly what you're responding to, and you're also not misnaming what they're saying or changing what they're saying, because that's unfair to the other side, that's unfair to the delegate, and they can raise a point on that and call you out, and then you will be worse off in the MUN yourself. So directly quote what they say word to word so that you're not in a problem when you're responding to a delegate. The third thing here is respond directly with multiple layers and give any form of attack to their point. So this is what we just covered. We covered different forms of response, right? These are the different layers that you can put up. So when US comes here and gives a speech, first respond by saying, whatever US said is not true. Here are reasons why it's not true. Then go ahead and say, even if all US says is true, here are reasons why it's bad. And finally, let's assume best case, whatever US is saying is completely true. Here is why our side is still better than the US, and you just weigh. And so these are the things that make up the analysis. This is what creates layers. So this is what we're talking about here when we say multiple layers. This is what creates the multiple layers when you go ahead and give a speech. So to respond with multiple layers, don't give one line of a response that is not useful in an MUN. The fourth thing here is explain your response. Of course, like we told you, ask yourself the question why again and again, and give a good analyzed response. Again, don't give one line, obviously, and explain every bit of that line. Explain why that line is true, why what you're saying is important, why that makes sense, and why people should care about what you're saying, so that you actually make a good response to someone else. We'll take up your questions later on in the chat. Don't worry, we'll take up the questions at the end. However, we have some people who will be answering your questions in chat as well. So Avira Avira, Gauri, if you guys can just answer the questions that are coming in chat, please do so. And anyone from team, please answer the questions that are coming in chat so that people get direct responses. So yeah, fourth thing is you give a good explained response. Don't like give one-liners. Please explain it properly, otherwise it won't be useful. And the fifth thing here is, and the last thing, which is not really related to the kind of response you're giving, but the way you give responses, be confident and smile all throughout, through all the response that you give. Why is this specifically important? This is really important because if you don't become confident, especially in an MUN, people tend to lose interest in you as a delegate, but also the chair will stop thinking about you as a good delegate yourself. If you're easily swayed by other people, if you're not confident about what you're saying, and your point becomes less impactful if you don't become confident about the point itself. So we tell you to be confident and smile through any attack you're giving, because it just shows how strong you are as a delegate, and that even if the US said something, you are smiling throughout as Russia and responding to US directly while smiling on your face, because you're not scared of the US, you're not scared of any other delegate in the MUN, and you're a very strong delegate and a very strong contender to winning best delegate in the MUN yourself, which is why we tell you to be confident. It's a very important thing, because even if your response might be the greatest thing in the world and you have an amazing response to what the US said, if you say it while stuttering, if you say it in a very shy, low voice, or if you say it in a way that you think that you're not even confident about the thing you're saying in the first place, then all the meaning of the point will just get diluted. Everything you said will become useless and redundant if you say it in a bad way, which is why we tell you to be confident while you're actually giving a response to someone else in an MUN yourself. Then we'll move on to the tips that we want you to know while you rebut someone. These are generally beneficial tips that will help you in giving a good response. That can possibly be used for like MUNs as well, obviously, but also in general while rebutting someone and while giving responses. By the way, again, rebuttal is nothing but just a different word for a response itself. So don't worry if you're new to this term called rebuttal. It's just the same thing as giving a response, attacking someone else, giving something back onto them in terms of content. That is a rebuttal. So there's nothing different from a rebuttal and a response. So some tips that you should keep in mind while you generally rebut people. Here are 4 or 5 tips that we have that you can use in order to rebut someone else. However, we'll just give to you directly and we'll explain what each of these tips means so that you understand how you can be beneficial, how it can be beneficial to you while you give a good response to someone else in an MUN. The first thing here is obviously we want people to ask the question why. I told this at the start as well, but keep asking yourself the question why again and again when you're giving a response. The more you do this, the more proof your response will be, the more analyzed it will be, and the easier it is for your judge and your chair in an MUN to buy. The more explanation you give, the more true your point becomes, the more valid your point becomes, and that's why people care about your point versus a point that's just a statement and has no explanation to it whatsoever. Which is why we tell you, ask yourself the question why. Every time you make a statement, you say, okay, I think X is true. Why is X true? It's true because of Z reason. Why is Z true? Because of M reason. Like anything, just ask yourself the question why until you come to a point where you're like, okay, now I can't prove this at all. This is just very logical and I don't have to give an explanation, then it's fine. But at least ask yourself the question why 3-4 times, because there's no statement in the world in a debate or an MUN that cannot be proven, and that cannot be proven well by asking the question why multiple times. So please do this first thing. The first step, I think, genuinely is the most important thing, at least for myself as well, when I do debates in MUNs. And it has helped me win a lot of debates in MUNs by just asking the question why in some debates in MUNs and just explaining a few things better, and you can automatically win this. People tend to lose out the most in just not explaining why, and that's why you get some people who are best delegates and some people who are not, because the best delegates tend to explain everything you're saying in a way that is much more understandable to people, and a way that will be useful to other people as well in the MUN or in the debate. A few new people have joined into the session as well, so we are continuing to put in links in chat. Tavish, please put in the Discord link and the link for tomorrow's session. More importantly, you guys can join in our session tomorrow. We'll be putting the link for that in chat. I think Tavish will just put it up in chat for all of you. Please register for the session tomorrow on MUNs. That'll be an exclusive session on just learning how to do MUNs and MUN basics, led by someone else, an expert. 2 experts will be leading the session about MUNs for you. So please join the session tomorrow. It'll be very useful. Same time at 6 p.m. and you can learn about MUNs from there. So join in for the session if you joined in new. Obviously, if you're also new right now, if you just joined in, the recording of this entire session, if you missed out for the first 30 minutes because of some other issue, we will be sending this to you on the Discord community. So be active on our Discord, be active on our WhatsApp, and we'll send the recording of this directly over there. But more importantly, we'll also be updating the recording on our YouTube channel. So please follow us, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and you'll always get every recording. We're not asking for subscribers because we want to get more subscribers. We're asking you to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any session. But more importantly, that all the recordings that you have, you can directly take it from the YouTube channel, and we don't have to keep sending you recordings because it becomes harder for us to send it to you directly personally as well. So just go to our YouTube. It's called The Teen Debater, and you can see all our recordings over there. The YouTube channel has been also posted in the chat before. For PDF and of the presentation, in case you want that, we can actually go ahead and we can put this up in our Discord channel as well. If you want a PDF, there is no problem with us putting a PDF. The reason why we say recording is also useful is because the recording always has the PPT. So if you see the recording, you will see the PPT anyways. But we can put up the PDF in case that is also important if you want that, and it'll be useful in our Discord server. So just join our Discord server and join our WhatsApp, and we'll put the PDF over there for you to use anytime. The second thing that I want you to know while you rebut is don't assert any response. I already told this before, but asserting means whatever you're saying, you don't prove it. You just assume it is true. And that's why we say you assert it true. You assert it to be true. That is a bad thing. You should not be assuming anything to be true without actually giving explanations or reasons for it. Question people. That's why we tell you to question everyone and question what they're saying. Try to question every part of their argument. Try to question every part of every statement they make, because most people just don't prove everything they're saying. Just say it in a very flawless way. They say it in a very engaging way that it sounds smart, but it's not really smart. Most MUNers tend to do this. They say stuff in a very smart way, but it's not really smart. And you should very much care about the fact. Question every person in an MUN, question what they're saying, and trust me, you will be on the chance of becoming the best delegate the more you start attacking and questioning others, because you'll actually find out a lot of people in an MUN are not really that smart. They just tend to say stuff in a very smart way. They use big fancy vocabulary, but it's not really something that's going to make a difference in the MUN. If you question them, you'll find out that they're actually lying, they're using big fancy vocabulary, and that you will become a better delegate because you can prove that someone else is not doing good in an MUN. The third thing here is then don't use logical fallacies as rebuttals. Something like ad hominem is a logical fallacy. And so what this means is don't go ahead and start rebutting. So one example of a logical fallacy is called ad hominem. The spelling here is wrong. It's HOMONIM or an EM, but I'm pretty sure it's not Y, but that's okay. The point here is a logical fallacy is something that is wrong in terms of an argument logically. So fallacy just means that it's wrong, it's not true, and logical obviously is pretty intuitive, something that makes sense. And so logical fallacy is something in your argument that is just not making sense. It is an untrue thing that you're saying, and people do that a lot to replace arguments and to replace rebuttals. So an example of this is, for example, in a debate, when you want to give a rebuttal or you want to respond to some other delegate in an MUN, instead of responding to their country or what they're saying, you start responding to who they are and their personality. Then that is called ad hominem. For example, if I'm the delegate of Russia and Arhant is the delegate of the United States, and Arhant gives a very good speech about why US's policies are going to benefit such and such issue, and I come ahead from Russia, instead of giving a response to Iran's policies and saying why Iran's policies might be bad, I'm like, Iran is not a good speaker. Iran is a bad person. And I say stuff against Iran, or I say that the US is a bad country. US is just not a good country to look forward to. That is all bad rebuttals, and that is a very, very bad way to respond to someone. That is not only rude and a bad thing to do, that's also going to just probably get you kicked out of the MUN, or not give you any chance to win best delegate. Someone will start marking you down heavily for that. But more importantly, that is not a respond. You can't respond to people by responding to their personality and who they are. You have to respond to the content that they give. And that's why don't use logical fallacies in place of rebuttals. Logical fallacies are not rebuttals. You can't use them as rebuttals as well. The fourth thing here is don't rebut examples. I already told this, but rebutting examples is as useless as rebutting as rebutting like someone's as rebutting like using a logical fallacy in general. The reason why this is true is because if you rebut an example, you're not rebutting the logic behind that example. You're just saying that maybe that example was wrong. For example, I'll give a good use case for this as well. In a debate about death penalty, let's say someone comes up and says, okay, the death penalty is a very good thing because it has stopped crime, and we can see an example of this in and let's say I mention a state without the death penalty. We can see an example of this in France, right? France is a good country. It abolished the death penalty. It abolished death penalty by the guillotine long time back. Or let's not even take France actually, because the guillotine was a big thing over there. Let's take a country without any death penalty at all. Let's take something like I'm going to assume that Sweden doesn't have a death penalty, and let's look at Sweden. So here you can come up, and here if someone comes up and says that the death penalty is a good thing, it stops crime. For example, in Sweden, such and such crime has been reduced because of the death penalty, right? And then you come here and you respond by saying, no, Sweden doesn't even have the death penalty, or the statements that you're making about Sweden's crime being reduced by 4%, 5%, that isn't true, because Sweden's crime actually increased by 4%, 5%. Now, all of these kind of things, that's not a good response. Why? Even if, let's say, someone else's example was wrong, they still give a point, right? They said, okay, the death penalty reduces crime because of this, and example is Sweden. So Sweden wasn't their main point. Their main point was why it reduces crime. Sweden is just an example to show why that point might come in the real world, but it's not a response. It's not a logical claim. So when you rebut Sweden and you don't rebut the actual claim itself, then you're not being charitable, you're not being fair to the other debater or the other delegate, because you're rebutting a small niche part of what they said rather than rebutting their holistic argument and rebutting what they actually meant. And that's why we tell you, don't rebut examples, because examples are made of some logic. So rebut the logic itself in the debate. Don't rebut the example. That's not going to bring any benefit to you in the debate itself. The fifth thing here is don't rebut worst cases. So if someone by mistake says something wrong, or like gives something, or in any debate, gives the worst possible argument for their side, don't try and rebut the worst possible argument, because already and easily you can rebut it. So it's not going to bring a very big difference in the debate. Try to rebut the best case of every other person or every other person's side. That is only going to make your side stronger. If you prove that even on their best case, you're doing better, even on the best case of this delegate, your delegation is still better. Even on the best case of this debater, your debate side is still better. So please don't rebut by taking someone else's worst case. Always take their best case. It's very unfair to take someone in their worst possible stance of what they're saying, and also in the worst possible stance that they can exist in, because then ultimately the debate is not true. Worst cases don't really exist in the world. It's probably something closer to the best case that's going to exist. And to be a good debater, you have to prove why some other person's side, even in the best, is bad, and that's why your side is better. Because debate always is comparative. You have to compare why your side is better. And to be a good person who's comparative, you have to take everyone at their best case. You have to compare everyone at their best. Otherwise, you're not being really comparative. You're saying someone else is horrible, someone else is bad, and you're taking their worst case, then obviously your side is going to be better anyways. That's not being a good debater. So we tell you not to use worst cases. And the last thing here is don't rebut using argumentation flaws, very similar to logical fallacies. Don't try to rebut by saying, oh, they missed out this part in their argument. Oh, they did not say this properly. Oh, like their word choice for this was very bad, so we didn't get it. Those are not rebuttals. Like if I wanted to explain that the death penalty reduces crime, and I'm like, the death penalty reduces crime, but instead of saying the death penalty reduces crime, I say the death penalty reduces people who go to prison. So that's people who go to prison are usually criminals themselves, but I said people who go to prisons instead of saying criminals. And so the other side, if they come up and say, this guy did not say that criminals are going to be reduced, he said people who go to prisons are going to be reduced. So his argument is wrong. that's a bad rebuttal. You're rebutting because I just misspoke something or I said something in a different way, but that is not a flaw in the argumentation itself. That is just a flaw in the way I said the argumentation. And so that's a bad form of rebuttal, because you're not actually rebutting the logic again. You're just rebutting something I did by mistake. And that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing as a debater yourself, because trying to rebut that is not really debating. Trying to rebut that as a delegate to another delegate is not really debating. That's just being uncharitable to someone by just saying whatever they said it in a wrong way. So that's a bad thing. Don't rebut argumentation flaws. There's another question that came up in chat. If someone said something wrong in their speech, we can add that in the rebuttal or not. Usually if people say something horribly wrong, like in the sense like it's very extreme and they just didn't mean to say it, just said it they misspoke, right? If they misspoke in a debate and they said something wrong, they said that we oppose the motion instead when they were proposing the motion, or we are against the motion when they're actually supporting the motion, but at the end they say we're against the motion. Don't need to rebut that. That's obviously a flaw in speaking, and everybody understands that they're supporting the motion. If they said at the end by mistake that we're against the motion, you don't need to bring that up. Obviously, that's something they said by mistake. That's not going to make a big difference in the debate. And so if someone says something wrong that is horribly wrong, and everybody knows that they just said it by mistake, don't bring it up. But if it's wrong, that you know that what they're saying is wrong, and they're trying to make it seem true like multiple times in the debate, then bring it up. Because if it's something not clear to everyone, then only should you bring up that thing in the round. But if it's very clear that it was just a mistake and everything, then it's not a good rebuttal. That's not even a rebuttal in the first place, because that won't be counted in the debate at all. Then let's move on to the structure of a response. Before then, I want to see if there are any questions. So if anyone has any questions right now to everything that we've covered, please raise your hand and ask them, or you can put them in chat and someone from our team will answer them directly. But if you have any questions, because it's a little bit complicated and understanding responses are a little bit complicated stuff, please ask any questions that you might have. So we'll wait for a minute. I'll just drink some water. And if you have any questions, you ask them. Arhan, Aditya, Navya, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask us. And everyone else who have their cameras off, please try to keep your cameras on throughout the session. It's only useful for us, and that's how we give to you your certificates for joining the session. In case your cameras are not on, we can't give you certificates for your session as well. But anyways, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll move on, but do put your questions in chat, and we'll always be ready to answer them from our team as well. So now let's move to the structure of a response. How do you actually give a good response to someone else? There are three things that are generally there in giving a good structured response. The first thing we tell people to do is by mentioning exactly what the other side said. So similar to the thing that we talked about and how to respond to a delegate, when you do give a good response, you have to mention what the other side says. So quote them on what they say exactly as the first step to giving a rebuttal, which is you just quote them or directly on what they are saying or what they said in order to give a response. The second thing that you do while giving a response yourself is now giving the responses to what they said. And so the second part, this part is more important. This is direct responses. This is so this is how I structure my response, right? If I'm giving a speech, I would be like, okay, now let's move on to the rebuttal part of my speech. I want to rebut the delegate of the United States. The delegate of the United States came here and said XYZ. So first step completed. Then like they said XYZ. Here are three responses to XYZ. Second step completed. Once I'm done with the responses to what they said, and I've mentioned obviously what they said, the last thing and the last step, sorry, that's remaining here, is talking about what that means in the debate. What is the useful thing that I've done by rebutting what they said? So what does that do in the debate? That's the third step. So how would I do this? Again, I would come here and say, the delegate of the United States came up and said XYZ. Here are three responses to XYZ. Response 1, blah, blah, blah. Response 2, blah, blah, blah. Response 3, blah, blah, blah. I'm done with the responses. Now that I've responded to what they said, here is what it means in the debate. Usually this would be like, I have proven what they said is not true, which means that our side is better. I've proven that the impact of this is not true, which means our side is better. Or I've proven that our impact is more than their side, and so our side is better. So just telling why it is better on your side, which is very obvious, and this seems very obvious, but if you don't say it out explicitly, no one will buy it in the debate. So you have to say it out very, very explicitly. But what does it mean for your side? What does it do in the debate? You have to mention that for the response. What is that response in the debate? So by taking down what they're saying, by proving what they're saying is not true, what does that do in the debate? What is the comparative impact of this in the debate itself? Please mention that. That's how you structure a good response. The next thing here then is how to attack a debater yourself. So the thing that we covered right now before this was how to respond to a debater, how to respond to a delegate. Now, if you want to go ahead and attack a delegate yourself, it's not something that's very, very different, very similar only, but a little bit different in terms of some additional steps that you might need to take care of when you choose to attack a delegate or debater yourself. So obviously the things that we covered before also on attacking a delegate and attacking a debater, but they can be more probably used and most likely used to respond to a delegate who attacks you. But how do you just go ahead and attack a delegate yourself that you want to take the initiative and respond, or just directly give an attack to the US, to any other country that is there in the MUN? First is obviously call on to the delegate. It's a very simple step, and we've talked about this multiple times. Call the person, take their actual country's name, the stance, and what they say. Explain your response, very simple. Give multiple layers, like we told you. Give 2 or 3 reasons for the response that you're giving. And obviously the third thing and more important thing here is mention the name of the delegate multiple times, again and again. Don't call on them once and be like, okay, the US said this, and then you talk about the rest. The rest 50 seconds of your speech is just the response. Mention the US, mention the delegate of the US again and again, and mention US again and again in your speech, so that people remember that this is US you're responding to. US did something wrong. The delegate of the US did something wrong, and that's why you should be caring about your delegate. So mention the name of the delegate multiple times so that the people won't forget it. It's a good way of pointing out how someone else is losing the debate or losing to you in an MUN yourself. The fourth thing here then is explain the importance of your response. So once you obviously give a response, explain why that is useful, why taking down whatever the US said is important in the MUN, why taking down what some other person says in a debate is important, etc. So give an important kind of a part of your response. Otherwise, it's very bad to give a response which has no impact in the debate, obviously, which is what we told you over here as well. When we tell you to go ahead and explain the meaning of that response in the debate, this part, the third step over here, that is what it means to explain the importance of the response. And you have to give the importance. Otherwise, it's as useless as just giving a public speaking speech where you don't explain why your speech itself is a good thing or why it's benefiting people. So don't assert everything, give the importance of it. And the fifth thing here is collectively ask for support on your side. So at the end of your speech, when you do attack a delegate or debater yourself, you're creating a controversial stance. You're trying to create a debate, and you're trying to split out people from one side who supports the delegate that you're attacking, or from one side who support you and who support the fact that you're attacking the delegate. So whenever you go ahead and choose to, let's say, attack, let's say Russia, and you go ahead and attack the US, you'll automatically create a divide, although this divide already exists, but you'll create this divide more explicitly in the MUN, where some people are now going to start supporting the US and some people will start supporting Russia, because Russia just directly attacked the US on XYZ thing that the US said, right? And so at the end of your speech, you want to try and gain the support that you already have on your side and try to convince the people that are lying on US's side to come over here and start supporting you. And so to do that, we directly ask you to just go ahead and say that you should support Russia, you should support what I'm saying when you're attacking. Collectively mention multiple times that please support me as a delegate, or support what I'm saying, or for whatever reason, explain why whatever US is doing is bad and why what you're doing is right. So request for support from your side, and ask people to support you, to vote for whatever you're saying in the resolution, to come and ally with you, and try to convert the people that are supporting the US to come on your side. And that's what's very important, because ultimately, if you have convinced a lot more delegates to support you, it also shows your negotiation skills in an MUN, which are very, very important. And they're very much marked when you give an MUN speech and you do an MUN yourself. The next thing here is then how do you preempt what other debaters might say, and why is this useful? So this is about specifically on how to get pre-made rebuttals if you don't have rebuttals yourself on the spot. This is something we do for you to prepare with rebuttal, or come prepared with rebuttals if you didn't have one that you can make on spot. So the first thing here is how do you make rebuttals from the scratch without knowing what the other side will say? One way to do that is make your own argument, make your own case, and start rebutting it yourself. So if you make your own argument, let's say you're the delegate of US now, and you're making an argument supporting why US's policy over here is going to be beneficial to the US. So let's say the US implements a policy where it nationalizes the Silicon Valley Bank, right? Let's say the US implements a policy where it nationalizes the Silicon Valley Bank, and it funds the Silicon Valley Bank, and now the Silicon Valley Bank becomes, let's say, a US government funded bank and a US government run bank for the purposes of the MUN or debate. And in that, you're saying that that's a good thing, and you make an argument on why nationalizing the Silicon Valley Bank will probably prevent it from failing. It'll make the resources over there better, etc., and stuff like that. And why it'll make it less likely to be attacked by private banks, and why the government can take up policies against private banks, etc. So you make up your argument on why nationalizing the Silicon Valley Bank is a good thing. Now you think of rebuttals to that as the other side would, and try to find flaws and change that in your argument, or try to find things that might be wrong and add new things in the argument that you could not think of. This will not only make like your case much stronger, because it'll already be rebutting everything that they might say, but it'll also directly address some of the concerns that might come up in the debate by just sorting it out at the start if you make your argument stronger based on what you think the other side can say. The second way of preempting what other debaters might bring up in a debate is try to think of their best case and rebut it. So think of the opposing sides, the opposition's best case. Think of Russia's best case of the US. Think of UK's best case of the US. Think of China's best case of the US. What would China at best say? What would be the biggest benefit to China, and how are they getting that biggest benefit? And then try to rebut that. One, you can already make rebuttals to that, and try to rebut what China is saying. Or again, you can do this new thing and try to add new things to your own case that can rebut what China might say, or what Russia might say in an MUN, or in a debate what the other debaters might say. So this is known as preemption. Preemption means that you previously think of rebuttals to rebut what the other side might say. You preemptively, or you previously make your argument stronger based on some concerns that could have come up in the debate. So when you go for a prepared debate, or when you prepare for a debate yourself in your 60-minute time frame, or when you go for an MUN that you've prepared for, let's say, a month in advance, you can already make pre-made rebuttals. You can assume what other countries might bring up, other issues that might bring up against your country, and try to already form responses to that, things you can say against them. And that is known as preemption. It's just a technical term that we're telling you, so that you can always understand when someone brings this up in a debate or MUN, what is preempting and what does preemption mean. The next thing we want to cover is rebutting principal arguments. So this is something we covered in the last session, where we talked about what principal arguments are. So this will not generally come up in MUNs as principal arguments, but will more come up in the kind of speeches you're giving in MUNs. In debates, however, they will come up directly, where a principal argument is an argument that is solely based on morals. It is only based on morality, and just based on ground root concepts and abstract concepts that we cannot have some impact on the real world, but we tend to follow as human beings, such as the principle of an eye for an eye, right? If someone hits you, you tend to hit them back. If a criminal does a crime today, they're sent to jail because we think the jail time or some amount of jail time is an equivalent punishment to the crime that they did. So an eye for eye kind of a system is a principal argument. Another principal argument might be that it is just bad to kill people. It is bad to cause death. And that's a principle against the death penalty, right? Irrespective of people being killed in the death penalty, the principle against death penalty is that you should just generally not kill people. Killing people just makes us as bad as the criminals themselves. So why should we kill people? And that's a principal argument. So irrespective of any practical impact killing a criminal might have, that it might lead to lower crimes, etc., the principle is you should not be killing people. And that's what a principal argument means. Now, how do you rebut principal arguments? Obviously, you can again just rebut them directly by proving they're not true, which is by showing why the principle of death is not really true, why us killing the criminal is not making us perpetrators of the crime. It's very much different. It's a little bit different. It's not the same thing, and you can prove why that's principally not true. Second is why it's not practically true, why us killing the person and why us doing the death penalty is not the same as us killing the person, because when we do the death penalty, we're actually giving them a punishment. When they did the crime, they did it out of intent. So we are not doing it out of intent. We're actually doing it for the betterment of society. And if we're preventing more criminals from coming in, we're actually on net better on killing people lesser, etc., etc. And so we're better practically. So you can rebut this principle by showing it's not true practically. And the last way of rebutting a principle is by showing that even if the principle is true, it is still bad. And that's why you can use it. So you can see that the way we are rebutting is not really changing. This is the same way we rebutted before, and the same three types of rebuttal we talked about before as well. And so the way you respond to someone in an MUN and as a delegate in a debate as well, it does not really change. The arguments might change, the type of arguments might change, the kind of things people are bringing up will obviously change, but the way you respond does not do not change. And so these three things that we initially talked about, not true even if weighing, they still remain the same, and you have to keep them in mind. These are very, very important ways of just responding to someone. You can always use them, and so this does not change. The next thing here, and it's probably the last thing you want to cover before we can leave it up to any questions that you guys might have and anything you guys might want to ask, because we don't have enough time for drills. So we won't be covering drills right now, but we can give these drills to you that you can do them yourself. But here are some of the final things that we want to cover. So the first final thing that we want to cover is how to respond to POIs, because POIs are questions that can be asked you as a delegate to a delegate in an MUN. So how do you respond to a POI if a delegate asks you a question while you're giving a speech? Or when you're a debater, and if you're doing a debate, how do you respond to someone who asks you a POI while you're giving a speech as well? So here are some ways we tell you to respond to POIs. These are very good ways of responding to POIs. Please note this down. This will be very helpful to you when you give responses to other people. We're sending stuff in chat as well. Do check it out. We're sending you a lot of links for you to just keep in track of our session tomorrow, which you can join in. But a lot of other things we're sending you in chat, like our Instagram page as well. You can always look over there, and you can feel free to follow us over there for more information about other sessions. So how do you respond to POIs? The first thing that we tell you about how to respond to POIs is one by directly responding with a smile on your face. This is very important. Again, we tell you to have a smile on your face and to be confident and to keep strength, because MUN especially just try to break you down as a person a lot. They're very rigorous. They're very scary with 100 people directly trying to question you all at once. It's very hard to give a response. And it's only your confidence that's going to carry you through an MUN or even a debate. The first time people just start losing in debates and MUNs, it's just because they weren't confident enough to speak or give their ideas, not because their ideas are bad, not because they can't think of good ideas. Everyone can think of good ideas. It's not that hard to just logically think of good ideas. But what is hard is to give those ideas in a confident way that people can actually understand them, which is why the most important thing when you respond to someone is that don't be scared while responding to them. Please be confident. You will not probably be talking to them again ever in your life. And you are probably doing this for the fun. You're enjoying the debate. So do it because you like doing debates and MUNs, not because you're going there for being the best delegate every time. And you'll automatically stop being scared for MUNs and debates. The second thing here is that you only answer one question at a time, and you only ask one question at a time. So obviously in POIs, if someone is asking a POI, don't keep asking. First of all, you can't do cross questioning if someone, and you can't do multiple lines of questioning. So if you're a delegate and if you're asking someone a POI, if you ask the POI and someone responded, your chair will most probably not allow this. And most MN procedure, this does not happen, but you can't ask a question back again. So don't be like, oh my God, he gave such a horrible response, I need to ask it again. And you start responding. If you do that, you're disrupting the procedure of an MUN and a debate. And that's bad for your own country and for the marking people are giving you. The third thing here is that when you respond to a POI, try to make it such that you think, try to make it seem that the question that they're asking is wrong. So whenever you respond, always respond in such a way that to the people, it seems that the question that you're responding to is just a bad question, so that it comes on you blaming it on the delegate who asked the question rather than the blame coming to you. And it automatically boosts up your own points in the MUN, where you're able to show that when the kind of question someone is asking is just bad, and you can identify that. But it also kind of ruins the kind of points that the delegate who asked you a question has, because they just asked the wrong thing. And so more support will be created for you in an MUN if you make it seem like someone else's question is wrong. The fourth thing here is, again, give multiple responses. Same thing we've been talking about throughout the entire session. Give multiple reasons. This is not something that's going to go away. It's something you have to focus on a lot, but you have to give in a good amount of reasons while you give responses to someone else in an MUN or in a debate. Fifth thing here is answer and move on. Don't keep responding for 30 minutes straight. Don't keep your entire speech just by responding to one question, and don't stick on to a question. Answer it in a few lines and move on. Your speech is more important. Your points are more important. One question isn't going to change the debate. One question isn't going to make a difference in the amount of points you might get. And one question is not going to ruin your chances of winning best delegate or winning the debate. So please answer the POI in 30 seconds and move on. Answer the POI in 15 seconds in your delegate speech and move on. Don't keep wasting time over there. You have a lot more time to cover other content. Sixth thing here is that if you don't have any POI answer, then there are a couple of things you can do if you have absolutely no response and you can't think of anything. First thing here, and this is a bad thing you guys should not be doing, but this is only and only worst case if you have nothing, which is straw manning what someone else is saying, which is just changing that whatever they said to as an argument to a very basic level and trying to attack the basic aspect of the argument. For example, a good way to show this is a lot of people, when they give arguments, they give a very nuanced argument. They give very good reasons, everything. When you do straw manning to an argument or to a question, you break down everything that is said in a very nuanced way and just make it a very basic. So you compare something as complicated as US-China relations to you and your relations with your best friend, for example. Now that's very, very very far of a difference from you comparing US and China to some social life you might have in the real life, right? And it's a very bad way of creating a comparison. So that's called straw manning. You converted someone else's biggest, like really big argument and really detailed, complicated argument to a very smaller, less complicated, basic argument, which does not represent the same thing, does not equate to the same thing. But it seems like the same thing because when you do straw manning, you make it seem like the same thing, that both of these examples are the same thing. So the argument is also the same. That's why it's a logical fallacy. It's hard to identify, but it's a wrong thing to do. But this is what you do if you have absolutely no response to a POI in a delegate speech or in a debate. Second thing is change the topic. We are all good at changing the topic when we argue with our parents. So it's very similar. Just change the topic when you're arguing with someone. Don't keep on the same topic when they're giving you a POI or a question. If they're asking a POI in economics, just change the topic, connect it to some political relation that you might have, and just talk about politics and go ahead and change the topic. It's not that hard. Just link it to something else. Everything is connected. So just link it to some other topic and just talk about the topic. You change the topic and it's very easy for you to continue. The second last thing here is that you attack from another way. This is a little bit complicated, but what you do here is if they ask you a POI, instead of responding to the POI, you find some connection to that POI and just blame everything on them and say that that POI might just be their problem and something wrong from their side. So start attacking them instead of taking the attack on yourself. And that's how you can respond to a POI as well. And lastly, this is the absolute worst thing you should be doing. We don't recommend this at all. Please don't do this. And this will take up and make a very bad scale for an MUN or a debater. But this is make up anything you want to make up on spot. Don't make up stuff if it sounds made up. Obviously, you can't be making up statistics and you can't be making up UN conventions. That is bad. Everyone will call you out on that. That's not easy. That's not hard to identify. But you can't make up, let's say, you can go ahead and say, my country did this kind of policy, and it'll be hard for your chair to check that. It'll be hard for your delegates to find that out because you did the research. And so you can always say that I know from my research this is true. And so it's very hard to find country-specific research. So the more specific and a little bit detailed you make your lie seem, the harder it is to be able to prove that lie. Versus the vaguer you go, the easier it is to find information on that lie. And so then that lie can be proven easily in the MUN, which is why we tell you don't try to make up information. It's always a bad pathway and a bad way to do responses. Unless you're good at this and you can make it seem very reasonable, do it fine, but don't do it multiple times because people are not stupid enough to figure out that you're making up a lot of information and you're really trying to trick people. That's not hard. But only make up if you have absolutely no response that you can say that, because we don't want you to be in a case where you give no response. The worst thing you can do to POI is be like, I don't have any response. I will answer via chit or I will answer later on. That's very bad. That's going to take down your points a lot and will probably ruin your chances of winning best delegate. If you say you have no response, that's as bad as not coming to the MUN yourself, because ultimately the point of doing MUNs and debates is to be on spot, is to start saying stuff on spot, and it's to be logical and it's to think immediately. So you can't be in the case where you have no response. With more practice, you will get a lot of responses. So don't be worried about that. But never, ever give a response by saying, I don't know, I have no response, and move on. That's a very bad thing, which is why we're telling you, make up information instead of giving no response yourself. But again, this is all worst case. We've already given you better ways to respond. So follow that rather than making up information. Then we already told you this. This is a repetition of the slide, but there's something that's a little bit different in this slide in terms of types of responses. We covered deny, which is just proving what they're saying is not true. We covered minimize impact, which is even if what they say might be true, the impact might be bad. We covered outweighing, which is, let's say your argument is true. Let's say our argument is true. Why does the impact of our argument outweigh the impact of their argument if you're balancing the impacts? This is another type that we have mentioned. It is kind of under the type of deny, but it is completely flipping what they say. So instead of proving what they're saying is not true, say the opposite of it is true. And the way this works is if someone comes here and says the death penalty will reduce crimes, you're like, no, the death penalty will not reduce crimes. That's the deny kind of rebuttal. The other kind of rebuttal is, no, the death penalty will not reduce crimes. It will increase crimes. And if there's a way for you to prove that, go ahead and give the reason out. But that is how you reverse. So it's kind of a part of like proving what they're saying is not true, but doing an additional step onto that and saying, even if what they're saying is not true, the opposite of it might be true. And that's even bad for their side. Obviously we covered this, but there's a specific slide on this just to show you how important this is. It's very important to give multiple reason responses. Don't give one-liners. give multiple reasons, and makes your response stronger. It also shows that you have a lot of knowledge, and it also shows the flaws of other sides as well in multiple ways. But more importantly, and this is the most important thing, it makes it harder for the other side to respond and rebuild on their case. Instead, if someone gives an argument X and you give a response A, then the next speaker just has to respond to A and their job is done. Their argument X still stands. But if someone gives an argument X, you give a response A, then you say another response B, and you say another response C. The next speaker has to come up and defend all of this, respond to all of this, and still prove why their case is better. That's why it's harder for them. So we tell you, give multiple reasons, multiple responses. It makes it harder for the other side to win when you have multiple things to respond to. The last part of the session is covering a little bit of drills. Since we don't have much time, we will not be doing that, but we'll show you the drills so that you can take note of them, take screenshots, and do it yourself at home whenever you get time. This will always make you improve in MUNs and debates. Obviously, the certificate of this session, the certificate of the MUNs Debate 101 series will be given at the end of the Debate 101 series. So our last session will be on the next Saturday, which will be a session on weighing and characterization. That'll be the last session that we have for the Debate 101 series, which is the final session in everything you need to know about debate. And after that session is over, we'll send you all certificates. So don't forget to register for that session. The registration link will be up very soon. Keep following us on our Instagram page for that. Anyways, here are something known as stock clashes and stock rebuttals. These are general big ideas that you might find in debates, big ideas that you might find in MUNs, like big divisions, big debate ideas, big debates itself that you can find ways to rebut to. So clashes are just big debate topics that can exist. So one clash is naturalism versus artificial. Like there's a very big debate on should we support natural things or should we support artificial things, right? Is technology even a good thing, or should we go back to the old way where we were working without technology? That's a debate between natural versus artificial. Protectionism versus free trade. This is an entire economics debate. Is protectionist policy is good, which means should India just become an economy that closes off trade from the rest of the world and just supports the domestic Indian industries in India? Or is it good for India to open up trade to a lot of other countries and not care about its domestic industries, not care about Indian industries at all, right? So that's free trade. Free trade means you trade with other countries, which means you allow other countries to set up businesses in your own country that might hurt your own domestic industries. So if, for example, if Tata is a very, very big country in a very big company in India and with a very large MNC, let's say another Tata counterpart comes in from the US, let's say Elon Musk, and he sets up the entire Tesla and all of his businesses here in India, and they start becoming a monopoly, and they start challenging Tata, they start challenging Reliance. And because Elon Musk is diversifying a lot, and because India is open to free trade with so many countries, because they're coming in, Indian domestic industries like Tata, like Reliance, or smaller companies that are trying to even build up, they don't even get a chance because now big MNCs from foreign places are coming in and they're trying to take up your chances of becoming a good business. Yeah. So that really is what free trade means. The second one, of course, is protectionism. That's the opposite, where you say it's important to build up Indian industries, but you don't have any trade with anyone in the rest of the world. This means that you're supporting the kind of policy where you're like, Tata and Reliance should become big in India and you should allow Indian industries to build up. This still might be bad for startups, because the thing is, Tata and Reliance can become the biggest industries in India. Adani can become the biggest industry in monopoly in India, and then other small businesses still won't get a chance. So in both of these cases, you can prove why small businesses are bad. In one case, maybe you can prove why small businesses are less bad, etc. So this is still a clash. A clash is a general big two concept debate that can exist, just big ideas between two sides in a debate. Those are known as clashes. Similarly, you have moderatism versus radicalism. Should you support moderate things? Should you support radical things? Are big changes good, or do you want small changes? The whole debate on like short-term big changes or long-term small changes. So like, should, for example, climate change, right? Do you want for us to stop climate change? Should we start throwing rocks on the buildings of like big environmental polluting companies? Or should we just wait for these companies to start making greener products and just advocate through petitions, etc.? So petitions would be a moderate way, but violence is a radical way. Similarly, modernism versus antiquity. Are modern things good, or are old things better, etc.? Should we move on to modern ways or old ways? So these are just 4 clashes, but there are thousands of other clashes that you can always ask us to put up, and we can give it to you directly for debates and MUNs. And so these are clashes that you can use up for debates and MUNs. They'll automatically come up and will be useful for your debates and MUNs that you can go to. And for the same, what we have done here is we've given you different drills that you can use up. And these are direct arguments. So this is an argument for the moderatism side. You can take a screenshot of this. This will also be visible on the recording because we don't have time to go through this. However, you can find responses to moderatism and think of why this might be not true, why even if this is true, it's still bad, and why weighing it from radicalism, it is still bad. So the three kind of responses, the three rebuttals we taught you today, try to apply that on this claim, on this argument, and try to rebut this argument, try to give a response to this argument. You can take a screenshot of this one as well. This is also another argument. Feel free to take a screenshot and try to do this yourself. I'll present the third one now. This is on naturalism versus artificial things. Another response to it is, so this side supports artificialism, and you have to respond if you're on the side of naturalism. And the last one is protectionism versus free trade. So this is supporting free trade, and you have to respond if you were supporting protectionist policies and if you're on the side supporting protectionism. Lastly, you've given some general tips of responding, which is whenever you respond, you have to prioritize what you respond, take the most important thing what you respond to, and always respond in the way of the order of importance. They should all be logically complete. Again, we told you that you should not assume and assert anything. And finally, make sure that you build your own case and respond in such a way that you're building, that it helps your own case, that it aids your own case. The very first thing that we talked about in the definition, that a response should always benefit what you're saying and whatever your side is. This is ultimately it. You can always register for the next session for tomorrow at least, which is for the MUNing series, where we'll just talk about MUN basics, and there'll be two new speakers who'll be coming in, and he'll be talking about MUNs to you directly, about what MUNs are, how you can go into MUNs, and everything about MUN basics from the scratch. So we're starting this new series just for MUNs. Please register for that. I think we'll be putting up the link in chat. We've already put out the link multiple times, but we'll put it up again. I'll just paste the link also. Okay, the link has been put up. Awesome. So Tavish, thank you. You've put up the link for everything. These are all the links that you guys need to be a part of the Team Debater. You can fill out a membership form. You can follow us on Instagram. You can go ahead and fill up our Discord and join our Discord directly. But more importantly, please register for tomorrow's session. It will be a very, very useful session and very helpful to you. If you join in, that'll teach you everything about MUNs from the scratch and all basics that you need to know for MUNs. Other than that, if you still have any specific questions, please feel free to ask us right now. If there are no other questions, you can feel free to leave. Thank you so much for joining in, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow for the next session for MUNs. Yeah, see you, and bye-bye, and have a good rest of your Saturday.